There are so many kinds of potato pies in Italy that I thought I would take you on a little tour from north to south. So I'm going to start with a potato loaf that I had when I was in Liguria in northern Italy. It has a lot of vegetables in it, and you want to make it in a form, a loaf pan. So what I've done here is I've lined my loaf pan with some foil, and then I put a piece of parchment in the base of the pan. This is going to help me get this out. And then I coated it, first I buttered it really well, and then I coated the pan in breadcrumbs. So you want to do that first. So loaf pan that is all prepared goes in the refrigerator, and you leave it there until you're ready to put the potato mixture in. So what goes in this pie besides, or this loaf besides potatoes? Well, we have carrots, we have zucchini, then we have some green beans and peas, and we're going to have some onions and garlic. So let's start with the carrots and the zucchini. So let me do the zucchini first, because that's more fun. Anyway, this is a zucchini that my husband grew in the Ciao Italia garden. This is called Romanesco, and it's a nice mild zucchini, and you see it has these nice lines, these nice ribs along it. And so I'm just going to cut it in half, and I'm going to put it on a piece of wax paper so I can grate it. So I would say one medium-sized zucchini. I'm just going to use the large holes of a stand cheese grater. And I just want to take it down to the core. I really don't want the center, the seeds. I just want the flesh without all of those interior seeds. All right, I think that is about enough. So we have our zucchini. I'm going to take that and just put it in a bowl for now until we do the other vegetables. I'm going to stick it in here. And look at how nice and fresh that looks. All right, there is our zucchini. If you didn't want to use zucchini in this recipe, well, you could use something else. You could use spinach if you want to. You could use, I don't know, whatever green vegetable you like. So now we have some carrots. We're just going to cut the carrots up and just dice them. Or you could just leave them in rounds. If you didn't want to do this, you could just go to the store and buy yourself already chopped up carrots and other vegetables. I think that's what a lot of people do today. They buy their vegetables all ready to go. And I think that's too bad, because you miss the fun of cooking in the kitchen. We're going to put some olive oil and garlic in a pan. So let me get that going. All right, I've got a little bit of olive oil in a pan, and I'm going to add some onion. Cook that down. I want to get the onion soft. This is a really wonderful and unusual potato loaf from Liguria. And the first time I had it, it was at a special dinner that I was at. And when they came out with this, you know, I was expecting pasta with a pesto sauce. Well, they did have that too, because that's very traditional in Liguria. But then when they served the meat, which was rabbit, by the way, very popular, they served rabbit, and with it they served this beautiful potato loaf in nice even slices with all the different flecks of the vegetables. It was really, really very nice. So I thought, well, I want to do that when I get home. So this is my version of that. So we have the onions in, and they're starting to get soft, which is good. So now we're going to add some garlic. So a clove of garlic that you have minced or chopped goes in. And with this, we're going to add our vegetables, those vegetables that we chopped up. The carrots, they go in. And when they soften a little bit, then I'm going to add the zucchini, because the zucchini isn't going to take very long at all. All right, now we're going to add the zucchini, the shredded zucchini. I'm adding these vegetables in the order of how much time they take to cook. So the carrots obviously take longer. So now I'm going to add this shredded zucchini, which is just going to cook down in a few minutes. Later I'm going to add some green beans, some peas. So we're going to let this cook, oh, I would say, 3 or 4 minutes or so. I'm going to cover it though. And while that's cooking down, we're going to work on the potatoes. So here are the potatoes. I like to use Yukon Golds because they approximate the flavor of the potatoes that I had in Liguria. And I hand mash them. I don't put these in a food processor or whip them because then it just becomes glue. You break down all of the starch. And this is just a handy potato masher. It's an old-fashioned one. And these are the potatoes that I use. Now, when I work with potatoes that have to be mashed, I stab them with a knife or fork, and then I put them in my microwave. I don't boil them. I just put them in the microwave, and then you don't add another layer of water to them, which you don't need. So you try that in your microwave. So now we want some butter. So we have a couple tablespoons here of butter, and we want to get that into the potatoes. And do this while the potatoes are still warm but not hot, because we have to put eggs in this. So butter goes in. And then we want 2 eggs, slightly beaten with a fork. So there's 1. That's going to hold this potato mixture together as in the loaf, and also give it a nice texture and body. So you just want to whip those up with a little fork. Put them in and keep mashing. Try not to get it all over you. And you're going to add some salt and pepper to this. You could add cheese to this right now. You could put grated Parmigiano Reggiano. That would be really nice in this dish. So now I'm going to add some salt. As much as you like, quanto basta, as the Italians say. And you want to get it smooth. You don't want it to be super smooth. You want to have some texture, but look at how nice and light and fluffy these potatoes are. And then a nice grinding of black pepper. And the last thing we're going to do is add some milk to this. So basically now we have high-class mashed potatoes. So here's some milk. As much as you would like how thin you want to make your mixture. I don't like it too soupy, so I add a little milk as I go along, and then when I am satisfied, I say basta. That's enough. Okay, things look like they've cooked down some. So now you have options here. You can use fresh green beans that you've cooked and cut into thirds. You could use frozen green beans that you've defrosted. So I'm going to use fresh green beans. In they go. Now you can begin to see that this is going to be a pretty hearty loaf because it's got all of these veggies in it. And spring peas is nice in this. So some peas go in. Get all of that. Again, you mix this around. If the pan seems a little dry, you can just add another smidge of olive oil. All right, we're going to let that's essentially cooked. We're just going to set this aside now for a few minutes to cool, and then we're going to add it to the potatoes. All right, here's that cooled down vegetable mixture. I'm going to give it just some pepper and a little salt again. Not too much. I don't like too much salt. And mix that up. So now we're ready to combine these two. So get that out of there. I'm going to add this to our potatoes. And now we want to just combine this well, mixing the potatoes with all of these veggies. It does remind me of Liguria. So everything's so pretty green with the the ocean and all the different colored houses. I just love all the different pastel colored houses. And of course it's very popular there with tourists. So if you go, you have to have this potato pie. That looks good. Now I'll get the pan. All right, here it is, all chilled, and you're saying, that's gonna fit in there? Yeah, it will. So you scoop it up, and you put it right in there, pressing it down, packing it. Use a big spoon, and really just kind of fill in so that it's all nice and even. You're just using a regular loaf pan. This is going to serve at least 8 people because it's dense, very thick and dense. And when we put it in the oven, you have to preheat the oven first, 350. This is going to cook for about 50 minutes, depending on your oven, about 50-55 minutes. When it starts to get a little crusty on the edges, you know that it's done, and you can stick a knife, butter knife in the center. If the mixture doesn't stick to the butter knife, you know that it's good to take out. And that's the fun part, is unmolding this. So that all fit beautifully. And then just to make it nice and neat looking, take a piece of wax paper and I put it over the top, just pressing on it. Okay? Just neaten up those edges so everything is settled in there. Okay, and then once you do that, see how pretty that is? Then I just take a little extra virgin olive oil over the top and I just brush it. That's going to give it a nice little shine, a little crispiness, and if you wanted to put grated cheese over the top, that was another option. This is also a great vegetarian version of meatloaf. Okay, so that's looking good. It's all ready to go. Oven is on 350 degrees. And next up, Swiss chard potato pie. All right, the second pie that I'm going to make for you, potato pie, again, starts with Yukon Gold potatoes that I cooked in the microwave like I showed you. Just stab the potatoes with a knife, put them in the microwave on the baked potato setting, and let them go until they are fork tender. Then you can just peel them and mash them. It's so much easier than putting them in boiling water. So there they are. Now I'm going to give them a little bit of salt and a grinding of black pepper. And also with this, we're going to have some fresh nutmeg. I really like nutmeg in potato dishes. And this is my trusty little nutmeg grater. It is really a beauty. Okay, so now we have that. We're going to add an egg. Okay. Let me get a spoon for this. So we add an egg, mix this around. And in this, I'm going to add some grated Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. And this is Parmigiano Reggiano. Remember, that's a cow's milk cheese that comes from Emilia-Romagna, and it can only be made in 5 provinces in that region: Mantua, Modena, Reggio, Parma, and Bologna. And it takes its name, Parmigiano Reggiano, from 2 of those regions, Parma and Reggio. So Parmigiano Reggiano. So if you want to put in about 1/4 cup mixed in with the potatoes, or even more, 1/2 cup, then you can put some on the top of the potato pie. All right, so that's looking good, this nice mixture. And so how is this different from the one that we did in Liguria, the potato loaf? Well, it's different because we're going to use Swiss chard with this. So this is Swiss chard, you see? And this is the Swiss chard that I took out of my garden. And when I use it, I use the whole thing. But in this particular recipe, I'm only going to use the leaves. So I usually just fold the leaves back toward the center vein of the Swiss chard and just pull the leaves apart. See? Comes apart real easy like that. So either you're going to get this out of your own garden or you're going to go to the store and you're going to buy Swiss chard. Now Swiss chard you can find most, year round, but the summer is the best time to get it when it's really, really fresh. So we want Swiss chard that we've just steamed. We want a cup of well-squeezed, cooked Swiss chard. So these leaves we put in a pot with a little bit of water. It doesn't take long to steam down. And this is what it looks like, you see? Here it is now all cooked, well squeezed, and very dry. So what are we going to do with that? Well, first we have to cook it with a little bit of onion and some grated carrot. So let's get our pan ready. So I've heated up a little bit of olive oil in this pan, and now I'm going to add some onion. One onion, diced, or minced rather, and the carrot. And mix that around until this softens a little bit. Once this softens, then we can add the Swiss chard, because the Swiss chard is really mainly water, so we don't want to add it right now, otherwise it's just kind of going to disintegrate. So we'll wait until this is soft, and then we'll add the Swiss chard, and it just needs to really wilt and flavor with this, and then we'll be ready to add it to the potatoes. All right, we're ready to add the Swiss chard now. So that goes in. I want to add just a little bit more of the olive oil because the pan seems just dry. Part of cooking is just not following a recipe, but also following your intuition and your experience of cooking in the kitchen. So if things don't seem exactly 2 tablespoons of olive oil in the pan, use your head and put another tablespoon in. All right, so that's looking good. That just needs to flavor together for about a minute. And then we're going to combine it with the potatoes. And just mix them together. And remember, if it seems dry, you can always add a little bit of olive oil to this. This makes it's a great vegetarian dish. It's a great side dish for chicken, pork, beef, whatever you want. I remember eating this on Saturdays. This is what my grandmother would make for us for lunch. She always had potatoes. She always had some kind of greens. There were carrots always in the refrigerator. And if you had eggs, well, then you were all set. So mix it really well, and then you want to put this into a pie plate. But first, you want to get your oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's set that aside and get our pan ready. So in a pie dish, you give that a little douse of olive oil, about a tablespoon or so, and just brush it all around the pan. This is the kind of thing that you can eat scooped right from the casserole dish. Or if you let it set up and cool, you could cut it into a wedge if you wanted to. All right, so that's looking good. And now we will put our mixture in. And smooth that out. And we're going to give this a little cheese on top. Now this is going to puff up some in the oven, and then it's going to flatten out again. It'll have a little crust over the top. All right, that looks good. Olive oil, really healthy too. A little olive oil over the top. And our grated Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. Okay? And that goes into a 350 degree preheated oven. So in it goes. But we're not done, because next up is my friend Donna's favorite sage pie. And for this is like an oven frittata. Think of it that way. So we're going to have eggs and cheese, our sage, and it's going to cook very quickly in a pie pan. So there is our sage. So we're just going to put that aside for a minute. So there are the eggs, a little salt, a grinding of pepper, and here's our tablespoon of flour. And now we want to whisk that. Break up those eggs, lighten them up. And what I'm doing with this is I have an empty pie pan heating in the oven at 350 degrees because I want to pour this mixture directly into the pan hot because that'll help the bottom set up a lot faster. So there are the eggs. And now we're going to add some milk, about a couple tablespoons, or you could use cream if you wanted to. Some cheese, and here we're using Asiago cheese, that wonderful cheese from the town of Asiago in the Veneto. This is a cow's milk cheese, and it's made under certain rules and regulations, and you buy it in a wedge like this, you see? So there's the Asiago grated, and now we put in the sage, for which this pie is named after my friend Donazia, who just loves this color. All right, so there it is. I told you my pie pan is in the oven, empty. So I'm going to go get that now because we want to add some butter to that. So I'm going to set this aside, go to the oven and get my pan. So you want a 9-inch pie pan. You can use metal, ceramic, glass would be good. There it is, sizzling. I'm going to add the butter and just let that melt in there. And you see how fast that is melting. So I can just brush the dish with the butter. This is just a great, it's a wonderful luncheon thing, but you could have for brunch, even for breakfast. Okay, that's looking good. Now we add our egg mixture. And this goes back in the oven at 350 degrees, just until it's set, maybe about 25 or 30 minutes. So there you have it, vegetable pies. Today I made a variety of vegetable pies for you, starting right here with this beautiful potato loaf from Liguria. And remember, we stuffed it with all kinds of vegetables, carrots and peas and beans. It's great as a side dish or just have it with a salad. And then we made a Swiss chard and potato pie, all ready for the eating with carrots and eggs and cheese. Another wonderful entree or a luncheon dish. And here we made a sage pie, kind of like a frittata, where we used fresh sage and eggs and cheese and a little cream or milk and flour and baked it in the oven. And until I see you nella cucina again, I'm Marianne Esposito. Ciao!
Marianne shares her lifelong food adventures in Italy with you. Over 100